Carefree Cooks, we're back together again. It's our second Carefree Cook Along. Welcome everyone to my kitchen here in Charm City, beautiful downtown Baltimore, Maryland. This is so fun. I'm so excited about this. I'm so glad we kind of stumbled across it because you would not believe how many years I've cooked at home and I've said to Heather, oh my goodness, I should show somebody this. Or I thought this was going to be terrible and it worked out really well. And I really wished I had filmed it, but yeah, to be honest, it's kind of a pain, to take out the camera and all the other stuff going on and film it and edit it. But if we can be together live and I don't edit it, you can see exactly how I cook at home and the things that I do. Hopefully, you can pick up small little tips, the things that I teach in web cooking classes, but then you can see them done on a daily basis where I'm doing them now and how I'm cooking, because this isn't a cooking demo. This is what I'll be eating for dinner. I'm cooking dinner tonight. Normally, I make it up as I go, but I wanted it to be a cook-along so that all you guys could get the ingredients. And I'm getting alerts. Let me mute that. All you guys can get the ingredients and we can cook along, and that's the idea behind it. So if you've got all your ingredients together, what we're going to do is go through this step by step. I hope that it's about a half hour. All right, that we shouldn't be any more than a half hour cooking, and depending on how much Chef Todd goes blah, 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 explaining things down to the nth degree, hopefully it won't be an hour and a half. It will be maybe 40 minutes total that we'll be able to do all those things. That'll be good. So I've got my cutting board ready, okay? All the things, you've seen my mise en place there. Do you have all your ingredients? Have you got your ingredients together? Okay, I've got my P&D shrimp, which we got questions. They're still in the fridge. Let's get them out. Had questions today about what P&D is. P&D is peeled and deveined, and I've got a bunch of shrimp lessons. You can see I did some prep ahead of time. You don't want to sit here watch me for 10, 15 minutes, but I kept a few of them whole, so I'll show you how to clean those shrimp as well. Some butter we've got a red pepper, and I'm going to show you my favorite method for cutting a red pepper so that you don't spill the seeds all over the place. We've got an onion. Again, we're going to be dicing onion. I've got some garlic. I've got some diced tomatoes right now. And look, I've got a can, right, of can of diced tomatoes, which is fine with me today because I'm saving on a little bit of time. If you want to do the tomato concasse that we teach in web cooking classes where you actually poach, skin, seed fresh tomatoes, that to me adds an even better flavor, but this is a shortcut I'm taking for today. We got some flour, we have some chicken broth. Actually, what I found in my freezer today, this was very lucky, and I wouldn't have told you to go out and get it, but can you see what that says there? It says clam. I found this in my freezer. This is clam broth from the last time I opened a bunch of French clams after coming home from North Carolina and seeing my mom. So that's going to add some good seafood flavor for me. We're going to use some Worcestershire sauce. I've got some brown rice that I've already cooked here. It's about 90% of the way cooked. I prefer brown rice in this, but you can use jasmine rice or long grain rice as any kind of rice that you want. That's entirely up to you. Our spice team: thyme, oregano, paprika, some cayenne pepper, some white pepper, some salt. All that is good. Okay, so I started to say I'm getting so many questions about I don't like shrimp, or I'm allergic to shrimp, or for any reason. Again, what I'm here to tell you today is that this is a method. This is a way of cooking. I don't care if you use hot dogs to do this. I don't care if you use Spam. If you're in Hawaii and you want to do a Spam etouffee, knock yourself out. Just substitute the shrimp for the Spam. It's really that easy. The other thing I was getting today, emails and notices I was getting, was that it sounds a lot like jambalaya, or it sounds a lot like paella, or it sounds a lot like other things. Yes, it is going to be like a lot of other things. And the other thing I want to ask you to please don't send me messages and tell me it's not authentic. Don't tell me how you live in Louisiana and you're multiple generations. I know it's not authentic. I'm not Cajun, The whole idea about being a carefree cook is making something that you like, okay? That's good to you. I'm not trying to open a Louisiana restaurant today in New Orleans in the French Quarter, okay? I'm just trying to make dinner for Heather and I. So don't tell me that it's not an authentic this and that. It's not meant to be. You can substitute anything you want, okay? So let's get right to it, all right? we got to do our prep first, and like I've told you before, I always start with the non-hazardous prep, with the dry prep, so to speak. So we've got we got an onion, garlic, some pepper to chop. We're going to start at the beginning, and let's see how far we can go. Okay, over to the cutting board. There's the sound of my nice Toledo knife that I like. We're going to start with the onion. I showed you this last week. From root end to blossom end, the root end is our friend. It holds the onion together, right? So first cut is like that, but dangerous to cut a roly-poly item, so let's give ourselves a flat surface to work off. I am not going to need an entire onion for this dish, so a bit of the plastic wrap like I showed you last Wednesday when we cooked together. Bring up the corners, twist together. All right, thank you. And twist around. That'll go in the refrigerator. That's all sealed up nice. Joan's asking what etouffee means. Joan, I have no idea. All right, I really don't know what it means. Hey, that's a really good question. I might have done some research ahead of time, but no, I have no idea. I'll admit when I have no idea. Somebody might ask the difference between an etouffee and a gumbo, and a gumbo is more of a soup slash stew. It's going to be a little more watery. You're going to use more of a stewing method to make the gumbo. The etouffee we're going to make in the saute pan. So if you've been thinking of that question, that's it. All right, I only need 1/4 of an onion for this. I'm not going to need all that. So I'm going to take the blossom end off. I'm going to peel the onion if it cooperates. Let's get some of this off my cutting board, up with the knife, over to the sink, and I wipe down the blade. Okay, I'm going to make 1, 2 cuts like that. Tip fulcrum method, my kung fu grip with my left hand against the onion, the knife against the knuckle. And down the blade. If you want to wipe with your finger, it's really not the best thing to do, but I've gotten in the habit. Always wipe down the blade, don't wipe along the blade. That's where you're going to cut yourself. All right, onion mise en place. I love having a bunch of small stainless steel bowls around for my mise en place. So we've got some medium dice, I would call that, really kind of sliced onions. Here's our red pepper. Okay, now people that have been in web cooking classes and have been carefree cooks for a while know it drives me crazy when people lop the top of the pepper off and all the seeds spill all over the cutting board and you got to go around cleaning them up and stuff, plus you waste all of this up here. This is the best way to cut a pepper. Of course, the pepper has the cage inside, and where these dimples are is where the cage attaches to the flesh. So the first cut I'm going to make with my knife is in a circular motion like this, from top to bottom. I'm going to try and get behind the flesh, but in front of the pith. So I get a cut like that that has none of the white stuff on it. Then what I'll do is go around, get that out of the way, radially around the pepper, behind the flesh, but in front of the pith. And I get a cage that comes off with all the seeds attached to it. I can discard this whole thing, and look at this fillet that doesn't have a bit of that bitter whiteness on it. That's the stuff that we want. Now, if I don't want to be wasteful, okay, I can take a few more cuts and cut the top off there and so on, because I know that's the first thing someone's going to say, but you wasted the top. Oh, no, I didn't waste the top. All right, again, we're doing 2 things at once. I don't need this entire red pepper, so it's time to store what I don't need. I put a little bit of plastic wrap. I honestly hate the amount of plastic wrap I use. It's really bad, but it does save my food, and my food is expensive. Okay, tip fulcrum method. We need some diced red peppers. Sticks, right? From plank to stick is what we teach. From stick to dice. Line all the sticks up sideways. My diced pepper down the blade. Same thing here. Ooh, ooh, that knife sounds good. Don't you love the way that sounds? All right, nice amount of red pepper. I got another mise en place bowl here. Scoop it up with a knife. Wipe against the side of the bowl. Side of the bowl, cool. All right, that's a side. Garlic time. Hey, garlic, back of the knife. Whoops. Gonna try and bust up this. Oh, Harry, sorry, Harry. Harry thinks somebody's knocking. Now, Harry, it's just garlic. All right, let's pierce that with a knife a little bit. This is a tough one, boy. There's one. Some people might argue that etouffee doesn't get garlic. And I would argue your etouffee doesn't have to get garlic. This is not your etouffee. This is my etouffee. You go home and you make your etouffee without the garlic. This is the way I'm doing it, okay? All right, 2 cloves of garlic here. We'll give one a smash and use our tip fulcrum method that way. I'm casting shadows on the board. Let's see if that helps a little bit. That's a little better. Yeah, I had a real lighting problem last week, people were telling me. Okay, there's one way to cut my garlic. That's a little rougher. I can also use the garlic just like I cut an onion, where I'll bring the clove of garlic to the edge of the cutting board, put my knife horizontally, and make 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm good at this. 4. I'm going to make, woohoo! Oh, it's a slippery garlic. Normally they're sticky. Can you see that? I'm going to make 4 slices in the garlic like I do an onion. One of them just broke off. Then I'm going to, with the tip of the knife, make 4 or 5 horizontal slices. I kind of fell apart, but treated it pretty much the same way. Got a little cup here for my mise en place. Got that set. Okay. So now, peppers, onion, garlic. We're good with that. Mise en place. Next thing is, let's scrape this cutting board and rinse this knife with the sticky garlic on it. That's not good. And the best way to dry a knife should be towel on the cutting board, knife on the towel, towel over the knife, and pull the knife out. Pull the knife through is the best way to wipe your knife. You can see I've got some scallions here, green onion, and you see the way I keep them in my refrigerator as if they were flowers. Stand them up in water and they will last for weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, more than your roses will. All right. So this part looks like it wilted up a little bit. So let's get another one. Green onion. Put them side by side. You can see them. Tip fulcrum method. Notice the knife is running off the knuckle of my non-knife hand, and I just kind of scoot down. I do not push items with my thumb under the blade. That is the best way to add pieces of thumb to your cooking. The knife moves toward the non-knife hand, not pushing items under the blade. And there's my green onions. Same thing for my mise en place. I love the sound of that knife. We're good with the dry ingredients. Oh, look what else I found. Wait a minute. I did not include this on the mise en place list, but look what else was in my freezer when I stumbled across the clam broth. This is a link of andouille sausage. What could be better than that? It's almost as if I had made paella, etouffee before. So the andouille sausage I actually did use for paella. So let's cut this up, and let me show you a more interesting way to cut this sausage. Now, anytime I have a tube steak like that of any regard, it's really boring to put rounds in something. Oops. To cut something in a round like that. It looks like hot dogs. The best thing to do with a sausage or something like that is a bias slice, okay, on the bias, and that looks a lot more interesting, right? Then you can talk about doing a double bias. So not only are you on an angle like that, but then you tilt your knife like that. All right, so 2 angles of that regard, and I get these nice long cuts. This is the way we used to serve flank steak in my catering company, because a straight up and down piece of flank steak just looks like a round kind of coin, like a deli meat or something. But a double bias slice of it, when you get that long kind of rare part of it staring right at you, that looks really, really good. Another mise en place bowl for the sausage. I discovered that. Okay, I didn't tell you about that before, but look, I'm improvising, right? I'm a carefree cook. All right, let's never leave the knife in the sink. So I'm going to wash my knife right now. Wipe the knife in the way that I just showed you. or not, because I'm off camera. And I'm going to take my cutting board that I use for vegetables and stuff. We're going to wash that real quickly. Another thing that I told you I would demonstrate how I wash as I go. So I wonder how our time is going now, all right? Because we're doing our mise en place. Notice under my cutting board, I got this rubbery shelf liner stuff. I always have that under my cutting board. Let's get my raw items cutting board out so I can show you how I cleaned most of these shrimp. I got smaller shrimp for this dish because it's like a fork dish. If I was going to stuff shrimp, I wouldn't get them this small. And I think really big shrimp that you have to cut with a knife in an etouffee just really doesn't work for me. Okay, so this is the way I clean shrimp is, move that so you get some contrast, pinching the shrimp at the tail between my thumb and forefinger and resting the shrimp down in the palm of my hand. I have a really cool shrimp tool that I like, and notice it's got two intersecting blades, so it's very easy for me to pull these legs down on the one side, switch hands, squeeze at the tail, take the top shell off, and then squeeze a little harder to take the shrimp out. Then this side of the knife is really dull, and all I have to do is break the skin there and take out the vein that my cousin Jessie used to call the poopy. Jessie is now 25 and getting married, and I still say the poopy. She's impacted my life from 20 years ago cleaning shrimp. Okay, so we'll get those two that way. Now look, if you don't have the coolest shrimp tool like I do, you can always do this with a paring knife, right? Here's a short paring knife. This is one of my favorites. This is a bird's beak knife, and I really like that little beak on there. So without the shrimp tool, all I got to do is lay the knife down against the legs and using, notice my thumb, again, using this motion, pull the legs off that way, again, peel the top, squeeze that, and then just barely cut the skin off the back and take the vein out. P and D, peeled and deveined, and our mise en place is done for the evening. My shrimp shells go in the trash. I rinse the knife. You really don't need to be on camera to see me wash things, right? And wash the cutting board. Ooh, cool. Cousin Jessie, I've just been told, is with us. I got the poopy out, Jessie. Yeah, that was a long time ago, right? Okay. All right, so we're back here. We got our mise en place done. I've got the rice made. We have cut up all our onions. We have the raw ingredients done. Now it's time to start sautéing. So we know the basic sauté method. Step one, pan hot first. Let's turn the burner on. I've got it on a high setting. You know, it's so variable. Everybody's stoves are different. Mine's on 8. Whatever 8 means to you. 8 means nothing. Okay, so just mostly high, but we're going to observe what goes on in the pan. So here's the question, and again, I alluded to this at the beginning. Is this etouffee? Is this jambalaya? Is this paella? Yeah, okay, maybe, but there are small differences in the methods between them. And of course, that's what I always want to try and bring to you is the basic methods in cooking. So the biggest difference between paella and a jambalaya, the jambalaya, I've made the rice separately. I'm going to plate the rice and create this roux thickened stew type thing that gets poured over top. But paella is different. Paella is where the rice would actually go in the pan, and the gelatinization of starches, the starchy rice, thickens the liquid, not the roux. So our etouffee is going to use a roux to thicken it. A paella or a jambalaya will use the rice to thicken it, the starch and the rice. And Cajuns and Southern cooking and French cooking have what's called a coulis. A coulis is a rice-thickened soup, and sometimes a soup can be pureed, right, with the rice in it. A pureed rice soup, and that thickens it, or the rice is just cooked in it, which reminds me of a story that I have to tell you. Take the pan off, because I knew I'd go on a tangent. When I was a chef at the National Security Agency in Washington, D.C., we had a production system where we fed 30,000 people a day, 15,000 people twice a day. We would have to make gigantic vats of soup, okay? These big vats, and I made soup on a ladder, okay, with an oar stirring the soup. This is how much soup we had to make. And they went into these gigantic torpedoes. Imagine a huge thermos that's about 4 feet high, and we would pour all the soup in there, and it would go to these different kitchens where we fed people. Well, one day there was a chef that decided that he would take a shortcut. There's no reason to cook all the rice separately for the chicken and rice soup. Why don't you just make some boiling chicken stock, put the chicken in it, and then put the raw rice in it, put it in those big thermoses, and ship it out somewhere? Well, it takes a good 45 minutes to an hour to get to all those facilities, and we were getting phone calls that they couldn't get their soup out of the thermos because this chef, this shortcut chef, he put the raw rice in with the chicken broth, and what did it do? It absorbed all the chicken broth in its journey, and they had nothing but like concrete. We had to turn these things over and shake them to try and get the rice out. That's the point. Rice is a thickener as well. So there's a big difference between cooking with a thickening agent like Roux, which is what we're going to do for our etouffee, and what we do for paella. And when I was in Spain recently, I got an opportunity to see this demonstration. So I can explain it all day long. Let me take you to Spain and let a Spanish chef explain how he makes his paella and why the rice is so important.
The other rice what we do anyway, the other type of rice we use is short and wider. We call it a bomba rice. We use it. And that one what we do, you pre-cook it a little bit. You put it with a little olive oil, heat it up for 2 or 3 minutes, and take it away and carry on just the same. So now it's starting. As soon as the thing gets dry, the rice will start in stack. Yes, so I need to be careful with that. I'm going to put the rest. Oh, this is really important. It should be tasty. Yeah, if it's like plain water, it's not the same. I'm just going to keep a little bit in case. So this, I put double quantity. If I put 2 kilos of rice, that was 4 liters. Okay? Okay. Just make sure again it's not stuck. It was getting stuck actually. Now, as soon as the broth starts to boil a little bit, then you have to lower it to the minimum and then let it simmer. Okay? And that's it. At this point you can relax. You don't have to worry anymore.
Okay, that whole thing is on my Spanish Food Finds DVD. So if you don't have Spanish Food Finds, you'll see that entire demonstration with the Spanish chef, and then you'll see me come back to the kitchen here and make paella. We have some questions going in. David, why throw out the shells? Good point. Generally, I put the shells in a bag in the freezer. I have more shells than I know what to do with right now, and it was only about 10 shrimp, and they were small shrimp. So yeah, maybe I should have kept them. I just didn't think about it. How much butter? How much butter for what, John? How much butter? I haven't used any butter. Oh, okay. Wait, all right, then cool your pan. We haven't gotten to adding, to checking the heat of the pan. Thank you, Heather, for explaining what John wanted. Saute method, Teflon versus non-Teflon, someone's asking me. Non-stick pans are good for grilled cheese sandwiches. That's about it. Eggs, if you want. I always use a stainless steel inset composite foot pan. I've got a video I can show you without going on that, but I'm trying to create some fond here. I'm trying to create some stuck-on things, and that's why I need this kind of pan. But I'll respond with a video later for that. All right, so, sorry, John, I've led you astray with the paella video, but yeah, this is not paella because we're going to create a thickening agent. Saute method, step 1, pan hot first. Throw some water in the pan. Oh, you want to see the... there you go. You want to see the pan. Now look, this pan... All right, there we go. This pan is too hot. Look at the water scurrying around, hovering right above the surface of the pan. This is called the Leidenfrost effect. The lead-in frost effect is when your pan is too hot. And you can hear me, I'm putting water on it to cool it down. When your pan is too hot, that the water won't evaporate. It like encapsulates itself, and that is going to smoke your butter or oil or whatever you put on there. So what I've done now is wet the pan, calmed it down a little bit. I'm going to swish it around. If it's too hot, don't start, okay? All right, so step one, everyone's cooking along. Let's try that again. Look at that difference now, okay? So now I've got steam. I've got evaporation of moisture, and the first thing I'm going to do is add some butter for the saute. John, how much butter? Just enough to barely coat the bottom of the pan, all right? This is what we're looking for. Pick the pan up. Shake the pan around. Make sure that it covers the entire bottom of the pan. You're not deep frying in butter, and you don't want dry spots either. First thing we're going to do is add the shrimp. Now, people might ask me, why don't you saute the aromatics first? Things like that. Really what I'm doing is par cooking the shrimp. I want to cook them slightly because they're going to go back in at the very end when I've built the entire sauce. If I leave them in now, right, if I let them continue to cook now, they're going to be rubber by the time this dish is done. All right, now look what I've got on the bottom of the pan here. This fond, and we've talked about this before. Now that I see this fond forming, this brown here, I want to protect that. I don't want it to start to smoke and burn, and that's why I've lifted the pan off the heat and I've pushed everything to the side. Let's set it back down. We'll give these shrimp a little more heat. I'm also looking at these shrimp. I see some nice caramelization on them, but I also see that some of them are still kind of glacine. So I'm going to continue to cook them, and I'm going to stop cooking when it starts to get kind of smoky like it is now. And let's remove these to a plate, okay? Now what I'm doing is protecting that fond on there. I don't want to burn that because I'm going to cook again. So I've par cooked these shrimp. They go on a plate there, and they get set aside. And look what I've got in the bottom of the pan. Now if this was a typical French saute, let's see if we change cameras again. If this was a typical French saute, I would deglaze this pan, or I would saute my aromatics, my onions, things like that. And then I would deglaze the pan and lift that fond. But you know, the thing about Cajun cooking and low country cooking is it comes from everywhere. Elements of the Caribbean, elements of Africa, elements of Europe, everything, everywhere. It's a mishmash of so many things. So what I'm going to use this flavor in the bottom of the pan, so nicely brown and protected, we're going to use this to now make a roux. So I normally wouldn't add more butter after saute, but we want to make the roux. So stick with me here. Pan back on the heat. We need some more butter. And now, John, I would say another tablespoon, maybe, okay? Butter in the pan. Let's be careful. Let's not burn our fond, but we do want this fat. All right, take it off the heat. Once you've melted the butter, I don't want to brown it. See how nice and... there you are. See how nice and yellow the butter stays, right? You don't want your butter smoking, and I've still got that protected nice golden brown fond. Next, let's take your flour, and we want to add just enough flour to make a roux that is still pourable, okay? Like this. Notice I'm off the heat still. I'm controlling the heat because it was getting too hot. That's too loose. Add a little bit more of your flour. I want it stiffer than that. Okay, I want it pourable, but still stiff. I want to keep it in the pan. All right, that's still a little loose for me. A little bit more flour, and I have a feeling that'll be it. Okay. So, now, you see that a little more closer? It looks like a mess, right? Yeah, it pretty much looks like a mess. But it's a roux. And it's a roux made with the rendered shrimp, right? Look at this. It's coming off the bottom of the pan now. It's a roux made with the rendered shrimp and with butter. And now what I want to do, now I don't mind burning stuff now. Okay? If you really want to Cajun cook, hot is hot. And we're going to cook this roux like it's molten lava. All right, I'm taking it off the heat. Oh, I'm smelling a very toasty, kind of like a toast getting really brown. All right, what I don't want it to do is get black. And it's off the heat now. It's a nice dark roux in that pan. Do not touch this. Do not let it touch your skin. This is lava, and now we're going to add the onions. The onions, notice, I'm hovering above the heat. I haven't touched the heat in a good 30 seconds or so. the residual heat in this roux is cooking those onions. All right, now I'm back down on the heat because my wrist started to hurt. So the difference in a French saute is that we would be sauteing these onions, okay, too much smoke, taking it off the heat. We would be sauteing these onions in the fond, but we're actually sauteing these onions, and now the red peppers, we're actually sauteing these items in the roux, right? And that's an African influence. That is a European influence. Much different than what I would teach in culinary school for a basic saute method. Normally it's pan hot first, fat hot, protein product, 75-25, aromatics, deglaze, reduce. Let's put it back on the heat now. Okay, that was a lot of time off the heat, right? Aromatics, reduce or thicken, that would be it. Okay, so now we have got all these nice aromatic vegetables. We've already cooked the shrimp. We've got our roux in there, and here is another difference, and this is one to listen up to carefully. Another difference between this, because normally most French saute, oh my goodness, look at my feet. All right, look, this is very honest cooking. This is the way I cook in my home. I told you I would be honest. I cook in flip-flops, so excuse me. Do you like the flip-flops or not? Okay. Let's get back to the dish here, okay? So now we're cooking in roux, and now is the difference between this and a lot of other cooking, because we don't season at the end. We're going to season while the pan is really hot. And we start with thyme. Oh my goodness, I'm almost running out of time. We're going to start with some oregano. How much? I don't know. I'm really just throwing it around at this point, and then I'll taste it at the end, and I'll change. This is that applewood smoked salt that I showed you. This is the paprika. All right. This is our white pepper. Notice it's still cooking in that roux. That is some molten lava stuff. Here's our cayenne pepper. All right. All that. I'm toasting the seasonings. And that is a unique cooking process when you make an etouffee. Toasting the seasonings. All right. It's time to put an end to all this. Here comes our clam broth that I found in the freezer. Watch this. And I'm going to need more liquid, most probably. Whoa! Yeah, man! Yeah! Add your liquid, and that molten roux takes off. And look at the gelatinization going on in there. The thickening. We've changed from a direct heat, a high heat cooking method, a dry cooking method, to a moist cooking method. And what you're witnessing right now is gelatinization of starches. Okay? And look at that. Look how that thickened up so nicely. Those starches gelatinized, they absorb the liquid, or they thicken. Now I'm going to turn that heat down a little bit. And we're going to check our degree of nappe, like we've done before. Let's see how much this is thickening. That needs to come off the heat. It's too violent. All right, we stick that sauce to a spoon. We run our finger across the spoon, and then we shake it. Shake it, shake it, shake it, and see if that runs together. And look at that. It did not run together at all, okay? Next thing we do with the spoon is taste it. Ooh, I made it a little salty. Yeah, I'm not happy with that. Yeah, it's a little salty. All right, let me think about what I can offset saltiness with. All right, first thing, I've got this Worcestershire sauce. I asked you to get this as well as a mise en place item. This adds a lot of deepness, a lot of mud to it. Salt, to me, is very kind of high, so let's add a little of the Worcestershire, all right? I'm adjusting seasoning before I add the rest of the ingredients, and we finish. Do not splash molten roux on your leg or on your flip-flops. Probably a reason I should not be wearing flip-flops in the kitchen. I certainly don't in a commercial kitchen. All right, a little Worcestershire sauce. All right, that cut it down a little bit. Usually the best thing for too much salt is an acid. So let me get some lime. I normally wouldn't add lime to an etouffee, but it is kind of Caribbean-ish, so I think I'll squeeze a little bit of lime juice in here. All right? If you ever do something that you find is too salty, it's going to be the acid, the citrus, that counteracts that. And you know, maybe I just invented something. Maybe this will be like, wow, this is really good. Yeah, man, that works. Oh, darn, I forgot the garlic. No, I'm not going to put it in now. Okay, here's our sausage. Let's add the sausage to it. And that's a cooked sausage, so that really just has to heat through. And you can see it's a very hot pan. All right, last thing that goes in are our shrimp. They get mixed through. I can turn that burner off now. There is enough residual heat in this pan that it is craziness. All right. And what else I got? That's it. Oh, damn. I am forgetful. See, this is all live, right? Our tomatoes. That's what adds some thickness to it. That's why you lay out your mise en place, right? Now I need to put the heat back on. That's what's going to help that saltiness. No wonder it was too salty. You forgot an entire ingredient, Todd. That's why Facebook Live is cool, right? Okay, that'll heat up really quickly. It gives me a little more juice. Let's taste that. Oh yeah, wow, big difference. No wonder. I knew that wasn't right. I knew that just didn't taste right. All right, now I can kill that, and now we can talk about some plate up, right? We finished that whole dish in a basic saute method, and I hope you cooked along with us. Did you like it? Did you like it? Give hearts if you like it, thumbs if you like it, whatever you did to like it. Like last week's Mexican chicken saute, we use the exact same steps with an alteration. Like I said, if it was basic saute, we would have sauteed out aromatics, deglazed, and made the sauce. Here, we added extra fat to make a roux and then cook the aromatics in the roux. So use this method for anything that you want, and whatever you're making, you make this decision as a carefree cook. I got the pan hot, I added some kind of fat, I got the fat hot, I sauteed my protein product, whatever it is, chicken or so on. I can take that out of the pan, look at that fond, and say that's a flavorful base for my sauce, you know? Oh, hot plates. Almost forgot about that. While I'm talking, I've got a pre-warmed oven here, 180, 70 degree oven. So you can then make that decision. That's a fork in the road, right? This is one of the 5 forks that I talk about. So you've got that beautiful fond in the bottom of your pan. Do you then add the onions and saute them around and deglaze with wine? Or do you add more fat, make a roux, and then add the onions? Or do you cook the protein product entirely? Or do you remove it to a plate, make your sauce, then put it back and let it cook in the sauce? This is what makes it fun, you know? This is what I really like about cooking. So let's move some things away here. I don't need that lid anymore. And notice I don't have a lot of mess either. I've got my little mise en place bowls, you know, I can rinse them out really quickly, but this hasn't been a very messy dish at all. Let's move some of this away so I can show you the plate up. Nope, that's not what I want. I want that camera. All right. And we're working with the 2-camera system. Okay. Where are we on time? Yeah, what did I say? About 40 minutes, right? 30 minutes of cooking and 10 minutes of Chef Todd yapping? Is that what I said? Maybe it was only 20 minutes of cooking. Likes and shares from everywhere, Heather's telling me. If you like this, share it with your friends, please. If you want to watch the replay, if you're watching the replay, if you're not here with us live, you put #replay with your questions and comments so I can see them in the future, okay? I'm going to go back and look at all these comments and questions. All right, so here's my warm plates from the oven, and we're going to do something really cool. We're going to mold the rice. This has been a big trend for a while, but I like it because it gives a really nice plate presentation. Okay, here's my brown rice that I made previously. I've got these little ramekins here, and here's a trick for you. If I take this very sticky brown rice and put it in this ramekin, it's not going to come out. The best thing to do is rinse the ramekin in hot water first. Leave it a little wet in the bottom. Waiting for my water to get hot. Waiting for my water to get hot. It's coming around on the guitar here. Anytime. There we go. Hot water. All right. I've gone ahead and rinsed that ramekin with hot water. fill the ramekin with rice, you saw the Spanish chef say, look at that, comes right out. You saw the Spanish chef say it was a 2-to-1 ratio with his rice. That's another difference between a etouffee and a paella. Paella uses a short grain bamba rice, probably closer to arboreal rice, like that you would make risotto with, arboreal rice. That's what a paella is made with, a much stickier rice. A etouffee is usually made with a longer grain white rice, like a jasmine rice or something like that. Okay, we've got our rice plated up. We're going to take our etouffee. You can either do it right on top, like that. All right, or you can plate it kind of around the side, like that, either way. And look at that, my portions were pretty good, right? I've got almost nothing left in this pan. Let's save that gravy. Over the top, my green onions. I like these raw. I don't really like to cook them. I'm going to use it as a garnish today. It gives a nice little spice. You saw me do that on the avocado egg dish, right? All right. And the only thing that's really left now, unfortunately, is the garlic that I prepped and I totally forgot about in the saute. It would have gone in with the onions and the red peppers and so on. I wouldn't put it in now, just sprinkle it on top. Raw garlic is kind of pretty raw, right? So look at this, pretty cool, huh? What do you think? This is my etouffee, my shrimp and sausage etouffee that we made together in 41 minutes, along with instructions on knife skills and storing onions and chopping things and so on. It's fun, right? I mean, this is the way I cook. I don't want to say I cook every night of the week because I've got some appointments, but every night that I do cook, it generally is just looking into the pantry, going, I got to use this up, I got to use that up, and it just kind of comes together in my head. But even though I have the inspiration, even though I have the idea, I still have to know the methods. I still have to make my own decisions, as I've talked about 2 or 3 times today. That will I use butter? Will I use olive oil? Will I impart coconut oil flavor? Do I want to use high heat and caramelize my aromatics? Do I want to deglaze the pan and make a sauce from that? Do I want to make a roux and then thicken it in some regard? It's entirely up to you. So here it is. Here's our etouffee. We've got 2 different kind of platings of it. There it is. Really nice too. Okay, plated it that way. I think I like it this way better. It's got a little more height to it, you know. A little more height. So, we have any other questions before Heather and I get to eat dinner? Any more questions, Heather? If there are, I'll answer them on. Heather, you don't want me to answer, does Heather know how to cook? All right, so I'll answer any other questions. Man, I'll tell you what. One of the great things, like you can be a really good cook. One of the best skills is fixing it when it goes wrong. That tasted so salty at first. I was really feeling bad, but a little bit of that lime and then the acid in the tomatoes, man, that leveled it out right away. So if you have something that's just too salty, it's always the acid that does it. So let me ask you, what do you think of this?
Oh, man, that's fine. I guarantee.
Yeah, man. If you want to know how to cook like this, you need to go to webcookingclasses.com. Get started with my 5 forks to carefree cooking. This will enable you to make the decisions that you need to make to come out with inspired, carefree meals like this. Thank you, everyone, for being with me today. It was another great carefree cook-along. This is Chef Todd Moore reminding you that there's a method to your cooking success. Bye-bye, everyone.